Hi, everybody. Sarah Lyon is going to be joining us today. If you guys read any design magazines or anything like that, you will recognize her. Hi. Um, she writes so many beautiful articles, and she's a stylist, and she's also essentially, I would say, a decorator and designer. She's incredible. Her homes have been on magazines and in magazines, and I cannot wait for you guys to chat with her a little bit. I will tell you, I have been coughing for like 12 days straight. Anyone else? Has anyone else been sick like this? I've heard so many stories. So you might hear a little sniffle. I have a cough drop in my mouth. I might have to do another. Sarah, I'll be sipping on drinks, but I'm going to add her right now.
Oh, how
Hey,
are you for the kind introduction? That's so nice of you. And it's
it's
so
just
good to
true.
chat and see your face because I
I
feel
know I
like
was
we're
going to
always
say, like,
chatting on email. So
face to face. This
I
is incredible.
know. And I love
I
your beautiful background.
Thank you. Do you like the like dragonfly? What is this? I guess this is a praying mantis like flying into my head. This is
Love
my
that.
crazy wallpaper. I feel like you'd approve though,
hmm I
because you
have
like
kind
a
of a
little.
floral, like eclectic-y wallpaper like that in my
Oh,
bedroom, and I've honestly loved it so much. Like, as you probably know, I get so like restless and I feel like I'm always redoing spaces, but that has stayed and I've been really thrilled with it. So
isn't
don't
it
tell my
funny how something
landlord.
sometimes so impactful can like you're like actually I like this still, which is incredible. This is funny because so everybody again, Sarah is an incredible writer. Not only that, I was going to actually ask you about with writing and not just your style, like
Yeah.
just what you said, how do you keep it fresh? Because you were so good at that. Because honestly, there's a lot of sort of repeat ideas that you're able to write in a fresh and new way. Like,
Thank
where does that
you.
inspiration come to for you?
Well, it's funny because I feel like, and it's like, I guess this is like a two-part answer, but so a lot of my sources will ask, like, they'll kind of just not be sure what to say. And what I always say is like, well, I want your opinion.
Yeah,
And I think even with like the same question, every designer is going to answer it. I mean, not if it's a, true, like, what size rug do I need? Things like that. There's kind of a golden rule. But I think with like these trend pieces, there's so many different perspectives. And so I'm always curious, well, what is this person thinking? And that's why I like to interview people in different regions, different aesthetics, different backgrounds, because the answers will always vary so much.
yeah,
And that's what keeps it fresh. But for me, I love getting inspiration from travel and from reading design magazines. The best is when I can travel and get new design magazines, like when I'm in
yeah.
Europe and I can get all the ones that are over there that like you can't
You,
find here.
you can't find them here,
Um,
right?
well, somewhere in New York, there's a few places in the city I'm fortunate that have the UK ones. I especially love those.
Oh
But when I
yeah,
was in Scotland earlier this fall, I literally brought like a gigantic bag of magazines back with me. And I was looking at them yesterday because I wanted some inspiration and they helped. So,
so do you catalog them when you're done, or do you keep certain
no,
ones,
well,
or do you just kind of like let them go?
it was funny because I like was actually looking at them because I wanted to make an inspiration board for the new year. And so I was like ripping out some pages, which felt a little like sacrilegious, but I was then also writing down like trends I was
Yeah,
seeing and thinking of pitches. So it's a good exercise. It's something I like don't normally sit down and actually take the time to do, but I feel like January, like
oh,
resetting has kind of gotten me like in that mood. So,
that's so good. How much do you travel every year? What's the story with
well,
that?
so I'm fortunate to go on a lot of press trips for work, which means I get to check out like new hotels and new design openings. So last year I went on 50 flights and I count even like a connection flight. So if it's like to California
Yeah,
and there's
yeah,
like a layover, I count like literally up and down as a flight.
yeah.
But that was like a ton. So this year I'll probably take it a little easier.
Where so your own home has been featured so many times because you are a
Thank
stylist
you.
as
Yeah,
well. And it's always like every time I see anything you do, it's just incredible.
thank
What
you.
how many homes are you on now that have been published? What are
Oh
you where are you living now? And
gosh.
like
Well,
where have you been?
so it's funny because like I get to include a lot of images in articles that I write in addition to like pitching out my home, but it was funny because my first apartment that was published was actually like kind of before I was a freelancer, and
Oh,
that was sort of how I got into this in a way. Was I had always pitched my apartment out, and
a small
one place,
space design because you were sort of like
yeah,
expertise in that
like to
specifically.
apartment therapy and house, and then I pitched it to house, and my the person who ended up becoming my editor there was like, oh, I see you're also a writer. Would you like to write for us? And that was when I
Awesome.
was still working in a different field by day. But one of mine was in a magazine that has since folded. But in 2018, it was like a small space magazine. And it was actually really cool. I was down in Florida visiting my grandma who loves design around when it came out. And I was in Publix and they have a huge magazine section and it was in there. And I was like, this is so
Oh
cool.
my gosh,
So,
that's
I
so
mean, and like I
cool.
know it's like anyone who's had that moment, but you're like in the grocery store in Barnes and Noble, and like it's so exciting. You're like, oh my gosh, my home is in this magazine, or I guess
It's so
often it's like
exciting.
your client's home, not maybe your home, but it was so
Are
cool.
you cool
So
telling us like what you did before? Like, how did you
yeah,
land into this? Like, was it a hobby or was it something that you always wanted to do?
I always loved design, and even as a kid, I would come home on a Friday and like move my furniture around, and because it was like, oh, you finally had time, and I had all this like IKEA furniture, and
Yeah,
like
me
super
too.
basic, and loved doing that. And then when I was in college, still loved like doing my dorm room and
Hmm.
all of that. But it's funny, like if I were in college now, I feel like it would be so much cooler than like
Oh
15 years ago. I'm like,
my God, me too. So I used to
like,
think you had to have a
yeah,
theme. Like I used to do everything. So I remember I did Asian theme in like my college room.
yeah.
Everything was like Asian theme. It was a little much.
Well, it's like I feel like back then, like people didn't really like think so much outside the box. Like I never would have brought my own furniture in. I just used like the dorm furniture, and I
Right.
feel like now kids are like bringing in like a cute nightstand, and But anyway, so I always loved that, and I did the newspaper in college and was the editor in chief of the paper, which was a weekly. And then I worked on the paper in high school, but no formal training in journalism or anything other
But that's
than
a
kind of
lot.
learning on the job.
Yeah.
And then I moved to New York and I had done some journalism internships in college and moved to New York and worked at American Baby magazine,
Oh,
which has since folded as well. A
yeah.
lot of these places have folded,
So
sadly, but
many.
that was a funny job as like a 22-year-old college grad writing
Talking
about
about babies all
pregnancy
day.
and babies. And, I knew nothing, but I wrote a lot about baby health and was an editorial assistant. And then I went back to school and did my master's in higher education, which I'd always
Wow.
been interested in because writing on the student paper, I loved writing about the policy issues and things like that.
Right.
So that was always kind of like another interest of mine. And I worked at George Washington University after my master's
Wow.
in the engineering school and the business school doing alumni relations and fundraising.
Wow.
So kind of a different world, but honestly, I feel like so much of I also think like anyone who's going out on their own, especially at like a younger age, like I went out on my own around when I turned 30, it's so helpful to have had corporate experience because
Yeah.
like I
Before
had
you start your own business, like
really,
knowing how the
yeah,
ins and outs work. Yeah.
I had
And
really
you're
tough
really, you have
bosses.
multi hyphenate expertise.
Thank
You have
you.
landed into this space where I was curious kind of like how much of your time would you say, like, how would you break it down? Because like, looking at your offerings, like what you do as a
Yeah.
professional, it's vast. How do you kind of like balance it? How do you kind of allot it? I don't know, percentage wise, how much of each thing do you think you're doing these days?
Honestly, these days it's like 95% writing. Like the styling I haven't been doing as much of in New
Right.
York just because it's a little harder logistically here. But I do like to do it for designers doing shoots.
Good to
So
know.
yeah, so like in DC I was doing it more for designers doing shoots, but also during the pandemic I was doing more like e-design type stuff for people. But I've realized that what I really like is being able to kind of have full control and do it for a shoot versus do it in someone's home where there's kind of more
I
constraints.
get it.
So but
I
then,
started in staging, so it's a
yeah.
similar feeling. I'm like a little more control, but staging can be really stagnant. And I bet for styling, I mean, I know you said you have your own stuff to pull from also, so you use a
Yeah.
lot of vintage, right? But
Yeah.
you feel
But
like that can
lately
be
it's really been the
reimagined.
writing. And I think, I love doing projects in my home, but it's kind of just turned out to be a little more of like doing that when I can, but mostly writing and projects
So
that I
even
can.
with all of the media publications, like media is going through a crazy time right now. I mean,
Yeah.
but there's still a lot of work to be had and money to be made, I guess, in so many different avenues. So you're finding you're able to write like a lot online publications as
Yeah.
well. So you don't feel like there's a scarcity for you on writing.
No, I mean, thankfully,
Yeah,
but it's an ever changing field, I think. But I think like a lot of these fields, I do think like the digital landscape has changed everything a ton because when I was starting out, these were all print
Right.
magazines. Like I was working at Meredith in the office, that's not even there anymore. A lot of these places have either merged or kind
Right.
of gone to only digital or kind of evolved over the years. So I do think with digital it's changed. But it's funny because my background initially was in print
Yeah.
newspapers. So I feel like part of me like really holds that like sacred, and
Yeah.
it is really different, but I'm appreciative that I've had kind of both, because I think when I do print newspapers, I know, okay, this is how to evaluate like a
Right.
layout, this is how to do just things that you're not thinking about when you're doing things
Right.
for online. So I think having like kind of the foundational skills, and
Yeah.
also again going back to like working on a team, working on a staff, even in
Oh
journalism, I think
yeah.
is so important before you go out on your own, because you kind of know, okay, what do I do if this happens? Like you've seen someone else handle it before and you're kind of
Right.
like, okay, now I know what to do. I think with a lot of jobs where like, if you go out on your own, you want to have done it on a team before, just because you see, how did my boss fix this when this happened?
That's true.
Okay, how do I know?
That's something I'm missing in this field, but I will say, as somebody who's had also an interesting background of various jobs, you
Yeah.
learn other things. You sort of learn
Oh
how
yeah,
things
yeah. I
work.
don't think it needs to be like necessarily in the same field, but I think
Okay.
again, like I had some really tough bosses in my 20s, and you just
Yeah.
and probably unnecessarily so. I mean, it's like they were holding me to a higher standard than like most of these top publications, So it's kind of like,
Yeah.
okay, like maybe this person could have chilled out a little bit, but I do think it like really ingrained like how to send a good email, how to
Yeah.
just how to have something ready to go through multiple layers of review, how to,
Yeah.
kind of like just
Do
be a
you have to
professional.
set your own timeline for a lot of these things? Like when you get assigned, I guess you get deadlines, right? So you get
Yeah,
a
we
lot of
have
these.
deadlines, but I'm kind of setting my own deadline
Right.
within the deadline to make sure, I get all
Yeah.
my interviews and research in time. So definitely, yeah, having to be organized. But I've always been kind of a work ahead, like the kid who had the project done early, and
So you got
which
ideas stacked up, ready to go.
yeah, and I like to have, people like you who are my go-to sources. I think, that makes it easy, is having invested the time to like try to get to know people, and then you're able to tap them and you're not
Yeah. So
forcing a
you sort of know what you're
relationship.
going to get ahead of
Yeah.
time. And I'm really fast. I think that's what a lot of people like about me. I'll be like,
Yeah,
yeah, here
no,
it is.
you really are. And like, there's so many people who, I mean, I'm constantly looking for new sources. So any
Yeah.
designers out there, feel free to send me an email.
I
But
will. I have plenty of friends who would love
yeah,
it. I bet a
so
lot of people here have
yeah.
worked for you. A lot of people chiming in. I'm seeing our designer friends who've definitely written for you. And
Oh, good.
um,
Yeah.
yeah, it's impressive.
Well, and I love like having, again, as I said before, like the different perspectives to pull from. So, and,
Right.
whether someone's like a newer designer or like a Gen Z designer, it's like all of
Oh my
that is
gosh, I
so
imagine it's
fascinating.
so different. I imagine it's so different.
Yeah.
This is like what's so fascinating to me about you and your style. From what I've gathered, it is like literally timeless because you
Oh, thank you.
incorporate something from every era. I mean, you really love the vintage, but you're also absolutely so cool with leaning that into all the modern stuff. Has that
Thank
style
you.
changed over time, do you think? Or do you think you've always had that sort of like awesome classic approach that just, it seems to me, honestly, like I could look back at your old work and be like stuff you've done, literally your styling, and
Oh,
be like,
thank
that
you.
never goes out of style.
That's so nice.
Truth.
Yeah, I think like in my really early 20s, I was very into the like pink and gold, the like
Yes.
2014,
Little
like the
glam.
word art, like not like live, laugh, love, but like cute quotes, and like the Kate Spade-esque
Yeah.
look of like the quotes and the gold and the pink. And then I think, yeah, I did get really into vintage. So when I moved to Philadelphia for grad school, I got a lot of my furniture on Craigslist,
Yeah.
and I kind of like fell in love with Craigslist
Yeah.
after that. I think when I was
Yeah.
living in New York before that, it was still kind of the like bed bug era where people were
Right,
really nervous
right,
about
right.
like, no, I'm
I'm
serious,
still
like
in
the
bed bug era. I
2010s.
still won't touch people's like certain
I
things.
know certain things on the street. I'm like, if it's on the street, it might be there for a reason. But Craigslist, I loved, and just like being able to buy a dresser for $50 and have someone like
Unbelievable.
bring it to
Yeah.
me in an hour. I was like, this is great. Like, this is cheaper than IKEA. Like,
And
this
now
is
you know
amazing.
what to look for. So like you can find incredible things when people are like moving out, estate sales,
Yeah.
whatever.
Yeah. So I think
Incredible.
it started as like kind of, oh, I need this, and I'm like a student, and I feel like, Craigslist was cool. And then Facebook Marketplace I became really into in DC, and then it did really turn into like an obsession of always like
Vintage.
checking every day. I mean, and I still do check it every day. I'll
Do
check it
you
multiple
change
times a
a
day.
lot of stuff out? And like when you do, what do you do with your stuff? Like if you
I have
get
a
new,
storage
because you're
unit.
in a small space, right? You have a storage
I
unit.
am in a small space. I have a storage unit, and actually, I just like combined. I was using a service called Clutter where they like it's great, but they like take your stuff and they store it for you,
For
so
you.
you never see the unit. Yeah, it's actually
Oh,
out in New Jersey, but for
really
me,
cool.
yeah, but it was, I wanted one that I could just access because you have to pay a fee every time,
Oh
so
yeah,
it's like if you want something taken out and brought to you, there's a
yeah.
fee. And so it's like if you only want one thing, it's not really. So I switched literally on Saturday. I just finished this, like switching everything into this new unit,
It's a
which
big
is like
job.
filled to the brim. But it's right down the street. It has all my, I just put like my Christmas stuff in there too. So I'm
Yeah.
like, okay, we're good. We're filled to the brim. Like,
Something goes
but
in, something's got to come
yeah.
out now, right?
Yeah, and I'll do little like sales too. Like Danielle Blundell and I, who are good friends, but she's also one of my
Yeah,
editors, will do sales of like our home stuff together.
that's
So
brilliant. Well, you got
that's
to
always
you
fun.
you post that on Instagram
We
and
do,
whatever, so we all know.
yeah. But then it's like for every sale, we always joke for every sale we have, we like go to one. So like we've gone
Of course.
down to Philly for sales. We've gone down to, we've gone further than that. So like we're crazy, but it is so true. It's like, yeah, you get rid of something and you're like, oh, well, like now I have room in here. Like this is
Exactly. Do you
dangerous.
do flea markets and stuff,
Yeah,
or yeah?
yeah.
I got to
Well,
get
I
into
love,
the flea market thing. I really want to
yeah.
go.
I go to the Chelsea Flea most weekends, not as much
Been
this
there.
time of year when it's cold, but I really like it. I do think every flea market is hit or miss. And I feel like I have followers say, I went and I didn't find anything. And I'm
Right.
like, there are so many, it's like going on a date. Like there are
Yeah.
so many ones that are just like, oh, like, why did I do this?
Yeah.
And then with other things, it's like, but people aren't really like talking about that as much. They're talking when it was like
Yeah.
great.
Yeah.
So like I'll show when I have like a great find, but it's like with anything that you go and you're like, okay, this could be good or bad. You just kind of have to go repeatedly in order
Yeah.
to know
So
what
it's
you
a
think.
commitment.
Yeah.
It's a commitment.
Yeah, but I
What about
like it
like thrift
because,
stores? Have you ever gone to thrift stores and found amazing
oh,
things?
all the time. I mean, I love the Housing Works
Housing
stores in New
Works is
York,
incredible.
but
It
in
goes
New York,
fast.
it's hard. I know. In New York, I think it is hard because we just don't have as much of that.
Right.
There's a thrift store in my neighborhood, but it's like pretty chunky.
Yeah.
I donate a lot of stuff there. Like, it's nice to have a place to like go drop stuff
Yeah.
off because I try to do like a lot of clean outs because I'm in a small space. Um, but the Housing Works stores are definitely like my
They're
favorite
so
and
good.
things like that. But again, very hit or miss. So like so many times I go in and I find nothing, and other times it's like
But
amazing.
after all this, I mean, after all this experience, I think it's so cool when you actually get to a place where you know what you're looking for.
Yeah.
You can tell when something's quality or when it's just valuable to you, you know?
Yeah, and it's like I watch a lot of content online that's thrifting related, and people's styles can be very different from mine.
Yeah.
So, there's things they're so excited about, and I'm like, oh, I probably would have seen that and like not even noticed.
Not
But
thought
it's
about
fun
it.
to see like what other people like, and it's like I'm not gonna like what's the phrase, yuck someone's yum. Like
Yeah.
I don't care, if they like it, that's great. And like I think that's what's so fun about thrifting is like you can go with a friend and find such different
Right.
things, and that's actually better than going with like a friend who likes the same
Right.
things because that's always like
Yes. You know what's so interesting you said about the yuck to yuck
yeah,
somebody's things, which is
yeah.
probably very cool. And like you're young and you know not want to say cool things. But anyway, um,
I did not
this
make
is
that
so
up.
interesting because so many of the articles that we have to write and that people want to read are these articles, right, that are like, what's so gross? Like,
Yeah,
what
they're
do you
like
hate right now?
clickbait.
Like, how do you feel about those articles? Because we have to write them. I get it, but I struggle. I think I've contributed to like one or two articles of maybe yours, somebody
Yeah,
else's,
yeah, yeah,
where I always have to like give this caveat. I'm like, honestly, whatever's cool to people is cool to people. Like, I don't want to yuck on that, yuck
yeah.
their yum.
So I have
But
some sources who I'll like email for those, and they're
because
like,
they're cool with it.
I cannot, well, no, they'll be like, I cannot take a stance
Oh
here.
yeah,
At our firm, we're open to all designs, which I totally respect. I do have other people, and often it is like, not to generalize, but like the Gen Z people who are less afraid to be kind of
they're good
outspoken. And
with
they're
being
like, oh, yeah.
judgy.
Because I think a lot of those people a lot of them do TikTok as well. And I feel like a lot of people on TikTok really know how to like take a stance on a trend,
Yeah,
whether, so I think they kind of like, and honestly, I feel like a lot of the people who've done well on Instagram are a little bit like out there about
you're
like what they
absolutely
really
right.
like and don't. So I think it's like a tactic on its own. I'm definitely much more of a people pleaser,
Yeah.
so I probably would be like, "Oh, I'm gonna pass." But I think some people like thrive on kind of like having an opinion and like because
You
it
know, it's
kind of gets the
interesting.
conversation going when you know
It
how to
does.
like
It's
have an opinion.
also, like you said, it's popular for a reason. I mean, there's
Yeah.
this polarizing thing, like not to get too into the society of it, but it's true. It's like for, people who complain, well, I lost all these followers and I made this comment or whatever. But honestly, you found a lot more because people like that sort of polarizing or like strong point of view.
Yeah.
Um, it's
I mean, this
fascinating
is
to me,
so like random, but like I saw on TikTok the other day, I just watch, I don't post. Someone had
Yeah.
spelled something wrong in their video, and so all
Oh,
the
God
comments
forbid.
were, well, no, but all the comments were correcting
Yeah.
them, and the person said, "Yeah, I did that on purpose. I wanted the engagement."
See?
And I'm like, "Oh my gosh,
Genius.
yeah." And I'm like, I could never because that's
I
like
could never
literally my job.
either.
But like, I was like, if I'm spelling something wrong, there's like a problem. But I feel like with this girl who did that, I was like, that is so
It's
interesting because people just want the
fascinating.
engagement.
Fascinating.
So
Because
it was
in
getting
your
her
industry,
comments.
in your
Yeah.
industry, you must use words like that in your articles. They must ask you for SEO, right? Like
Yeah.
use certain words that are going to get your
Well,
engagement up.
usually like those topics, like the team on staff will have decided,
It's in
I'm
there.
not like
Yeah.
randomly thinking of this, but
Fascinating.
I do think anything that's like a little bit like, you know, 10
Yeah.
things designers would never display in a bedroom. But
Yeah.
often like the answers with that are kind of always the same. People always say a TV.
Yeah. And meanwhile,
It's
I have
like
a big
you
old
can
TV
kind
in
of
my room.
predict. I know I have one too, but it's like you can kind of predict like what people are going to say at this point. So
Absolutely. I just find it so fascinating because I also struggle with, because I am actually, sorry about the cough drop. It's just going to be what it's going to be.
you were good.
I struggle because actually, I come from a theater background. So I love character. I love people being different. Like to me, that's awesome. It's like embodying a character for me to do like a home for a design. So I really struggle with that perspective. Like this is good, this is bad. So I'm like, well, for this person, it's really good.
Yeah.
It's so hard for me, but I agree with you. I wonder if part of the like perspective that can be so strong like that is so popular right now is like this idea that everything's kind of forgivable. Do you feel like that? Like you could dig your way out of almost anything, right? I mean,
Yeah.
like
Well,
it's
do you mean
okay
like
if you miss
design decision
like
wise or
anything, yeah,
like,
design specific. Like you
yeah,
make a stance and you're like, oh, I hate this. It's totally okay if like in a
yeah.
year you're like, you know what? On second thought, I like it now.
Oh, yeah. I mean, I feel like I every day am like, do I hate everything in here? But it's like no one has an unlimited budget or time, or,
Me
it's like you have to
too.
just decide, like, okay, I'm not going to hate this today because I can't afford to
Exactly.
get rid of
Or
everything and
like
start
give it
over.
a week and it'll be
Yeah.
cool again and I'll like get over it.
Yeah. Or
Well, that's
even like, it's funny because for a period of time, I think it also depends on like the type of content I consume because I feel like a lot of the content I see on TikTok is younger people who have like these very like clean modern apartments and I'm in like an older, and I love the character. But
God,
sometimes
it's
seeing
gorgeous.
so much of these beautiful like no flaws, I'm
Minimalist.
like, wait, do I want that? And I know I don't want that. I've never wanted that. But sometimes if you see it repeatedly and
Yeah.
then when I switch over to reading these like British design magazines,
Yeah.
you see like, oh yeah, this is,
This is
this like character
me.
layers, yeah, the pattern. So, but I also, it's like, that's why I could so see, I'd want to have like three separate lives. Like one is me in the high rise, one is me in
Yeah.
this, one is me in a house, just because it's like
But this is why
so cool to think about.
travel is so good for you.
Yeah.
Because this is why your industry is so good for you because you're exploring all these things. You're getting to go to these, I mean, hotels are like that, right? You'll have
They
the
are.
vintage
Yeah,
boutique and then you'll have the really modern.
they are. And that's what's fun, I think, about even being in the more modern hotels. It does, I usually pick a hotel because I like the decor. So I don't usually pick the modern ones, but sometimes I end up there. And it is kind of relaxing to be in like a
It's
minimalist
okay to
space
experience it.
for
It's
a
not
couple
necessarily
of
something you want
days.
to live in every day, right? But
Right. But it's like,
absolutely.
okay, I get it. Or even, visiting friends, going over to friends' apartments. I feel like, in New York, you don't really get to do that as much, but when you do get to, it is fun. So,
Yeah. How do you love where you're living now? Where are you on? Are you on the east side?
yeah, I'm on the Upper East Side. So I've actually been in this apartment for almost 4 years. I mean, going in July, it'll be 4 years, which is crazy because when I moved in, I thought, oh, I had kind of a hard time finding a place. I was newly self-employed. It was the summer. I wasn't living here. So I kind of took, and it was like still kind of COVID. So I took like the one that I liked the best, kind of the one that worked out. And I wasn't, I was kind of like, okay, I'm going to take the first one that works out type of thing.
Yeah.
And every year I've thought about moving, and every year I just can't. I'm like, I have such a good deal. Like, I got a pretty good COVID deal that's only gone up
Yes.
fairly incrementally.
And the area
And
is
I've done a
great.
lot to it. I love my neighborhood. I live, really quiet. Like, the Upper East Side is just so
So quiet.
welcoming and quiet. And, sometimes I'm like, oh, should I live in the West Village? Should I live in Soho? But it's like, no,
Maybe that
not for
era
me.
has passed, or maybe it'll
I
come back.
know. Well, honestly, it's like maybe that era is yet to come because
Yet to
it's so
come.
expensive down there now. It's like when I was right out of college, this was the place to be. And, now it's like down there, and I'm just like, oh
Oh,
my God.
really? And you're so close. Whatever. I mean, I know it's like a 40 minute.
Yeah.
It's ultimately like
It's
40
not
minutes
that
everywhere in
close.
the city.
Yeah. But it's like, I can go down there. I have friends who live down there, and
Yeah.
it's like you're
Yeah.
always popping around in New York. So,
Well, the apartment lifestyle is fantastic. You've made it look like incredibly chic and
yeah.
inspiring. I mean, I actually often I think about people like you and like your style when because I live in an actually pretty small house. I live in a
Yeah.
house, but it's small. And I have 3 kids and a husband, so it's 5 of us. Um, and sometimes I get a little like, oh, I wish I had more space. But sometimes I think maybe it's not valuable. Like if I wanted to do a tour of my house or like invite a photographer to take photos of my house, I'm like, oh, maybe not. And then I'm like, what am I talking about? Like you can absolutely
Definitely.
capture the style and the presence of a small space. It's just you
Yeah.
see so many expansive places with like the 11-foot high ceilings, and
Yeah.
I mean even your apartment, you
I've
probably have
been
11
in
foot high
those.
ceilings.
No, I don't. I have like normal,
You
standard
do?
9. Yeah,
Okay,
8.
9 is
But
pretty good. I have
no, it
like
might be
8.
8. Whatever the standard, I think it's 8. 96 inches.
Like
So
8,
8.
yeah,
Yeah.
8 feet.
So yeah, it's like sad that I know that,
Oh,
but
it
I
looks
do a lot.
high to me. You made it look
But
good.
it's like it's funny because I've done styling in really big houses, and you would think like, oh, being in a house like that, you would never want to leave, and I'm actually like always happy to go home from
Struggles.
those because it's just like there's such big houses. I'm like, I would never need that
Yeah,
much
yeah,
room, and it's like hard to fill all the space, and it doesn't feel cozy, and
yeah.
like
That I
there's
get.
just
I
stuff
will
that
say
needs to
that,
be
that for me the
maintained.
biggest, yeah, for me the biggest bummer. And I lived in an apartment, a top floor apartment in the city in Bronx, like right at the top of
Yeah.
the 1 train, and it
Oh,
had
cool.
11-foot high ceilings.
Oh,
It was not a big apartment. That is something that I noticed. So like, it's a
yeah.
lot of pictures in the magazines. The houses have the high ceilings, and it's like that is something I wish if I could
Oh,
redo
I
my
would
home, I
definitely
would just
do
add the
that.
ceiling height.
Yeah, one of my friends just moved into a really cool apartment on the Upper West Side that's also just a walk up
Pre-war,
pre-war, but it has these high ceilings. And so she got this beautiful pier mirror that she just put up, and the place had crown molding. She got like the steal of the century.
yeah,
Like, I mean,
yeah.
it's more than mine. I have the steal of the century, but
She got
for
even
when she found
better.
hers, which was fall 2024, she got a really good deal, and it's
Wow.
a beautiful space. So it's just fun. Like, it's fun when friends move into I mean, she's another design friend too. So it's
Wow.
like we always talk about, okay, what are you going to put on this wall? What are
Yeah.
you going to do here? And so it's fun to like see friends doing their apartments and talk about, and our styles are fairly similar. So, it's always like just
Oh my gosh,
fun to bounce
sounds
ideas off each other.
it sounds dreamy. I mean, the traveling, the inspiration, the style.
Thank you.
You're doing amazing things. It's so good to be able to talk to you like this. And I'm wondering if you have a show and tell for us today.
Yes. Hang on. Let me get it though.
Yay! Okay.
Right over here. Okay. It's a little like awkward to hold the whole time. So, okay. So these sheep, like the
Yes,
Lillet. So this
made
is
of real sheep
Lottie.
wool.
This is my little sheep, but she's small. She's apartment sized.
She's an apartment
And,
sized
but
sheep.
do you know, because if you
I've
don't
seen
know
her in
what
the
these are,
picture.
what?
Have I seen her in a picture?
Maybe on like a story. I just got her a couple of months ago. But so Facebook Marketplace, the real ones are like huge and they're $7,000. This was like
Yes.
$200. So still kind
Oh,
of a lot for like a little thing, but a good price for what it is.
it's like real
And
wool.
she's like the cutest thing. If people who have not heard of these think I'm like a crazy person, I
No,
had been wanting
no,
one of
what's
these
up?
sheets for literally years. And so I saw it on Facebook, messaged the girl, and it was one of those ones that was like so hard to get through to the person. I kept following up. And then I was out of town, and then she was out of town, and I
Did
like
she know what it's worth?
finally, what?
Did she know what it's worth?
She knew that they were popular because she was getting a ton of messages. And so I'm very persuasive on
Yeah.
Facebook Marketplace. I'm like, I will Venmo you right now. I'll get it, the day you get back from your trip. Let's be in touch. Here's my phone number, like everything.
Yeah.
So I pursued her, but it's just quirky.
So
I love little quirky, and it's very like British
it
inspired, and I'm loving that.
is. Yeah.
So
Very much an
when,
Anglophile
yeah, when
feel.
my
I've got
friends
to go
come over,
visit.
they'll like hold her like a baby, like, like, oh, so
She's their therapy sheep.
I know. So like, yeah, when the wine comes out, like Lottie will end up on like someone's lap.
I love that so much.
Yeah. So
So
that's my like very odd find that
that's
I love.
wonderful. I usually ask people too, like, what is I ask these questions. I might actually stop doing this. I don't know because I feel like we talk about it so much during the
Yeah.
thing, but it's kind of a nice recap. Like, um, what's warming your heart these days? Anything?
I think just trying to be more like present and kind of enjoy like romanticizing my
Yes,
life a little more, which I think
it
like
is
in the
romantic.
winter. Yeah, like in the winter, I think, it's
Yeah,
like after the holidays kind of sad and cold. And so I've been trying to like read and, do my little like nightly rituals that
lean
are kind
into
of
it.
like, yeah, kind of like just romanticize the day to day because I don't have as many like plans and travel right now. So I've been trying to just like embrace being at home, which, I love
Love
being at
that.
home. I never get to
Oh,
like actually just sit at home after, a
yes.
lot of the time, like after work. So, try to just kind of like enjoy the small things.
I love that. And
Hi, Kel.
Mikkel, I know I was just saying hi,
Love
Mikkel.
you. Oh, yeah.
He's my new friend. I like to believe that Mikkel and I are besties
He is
inside,
so
but
great.
then he has a lot of besties
Love
because he's pretty
Mikkel.
great.
Thanks for joining.
Thanks for
Yeah.
joining. Um, and then home. You said that the home is really like it's about the neighborhood. You got a steal. You feel good about where you are right now.
Yeah.
What is home to you these days?
I think home is just, anywhere that you can like express your own personality and be yourself. I feel like so many people just view, especially New York, view their apartment as like a place to sleep and that's
Yeah,
it. And I feel like why not go all out and express yourself? It is.
yeah.
And I think a
I
lot of
love
people
that.
like are good at expressing themselves, throughout their wardrobe or other ways. But I'm kind of like, this is your little corner of the world in New York. Like you're paying so much to live here. Why not
Yeah,
go all out? It's funny because when I look at apartments, I sometimes like, because I love to just
yeah.
stalk online. I'm like if I were a guy and I worked 10 hours every day in an office, this would be a great apartment. Like,
Yes.
there's no natural light, but it's
You're,
like pretty and
you're getting it.
modern
You're
and
getting the
whatever.
character-driven design. That's it. You're like,
Yes.
this is good
But
for
then
this guy.
yeah, so like I totally understand people who just view that as like a crash pad and nothing else. And they're like, I'm never home. I'm never home during the daytime. I don't
Yeah,
need it to be this. And I'm like, I need
yeah,
it to be
yeah.
full of
And
natural light. I
I
need
think
it to be
they're,
my
yeah.
style, everything.
I think they're selling themselves short too because like it does make a difference. Like
It
just
does.
something that's you when you get home. Like everybody needs that.
Yeah.
So you would say yes, things are in harmony for you right now. How would you say?
Yes.
Yay, I would
Yes.
too. This has been so lovely to get to
It
talk to
has.
you.
Thank you for having me. This has been so
It's super
fun.
fun. I'm gonna try to be better about like editing these, like maybe even promoting them because they're just such fun conversations. I love that people get
Yeah.
to meet people that they know professionally and maybe get to know a little bit about them and like what's their personality. And you've been just so great.
Oh, thank you.
Thank you.
So with you.
Thank
This
you.
was so
Even though
fun.
my voice is like
Yeah.
this. Oh my God.
Oh, it's fine.
Anyway, but we'll do it again sometime and I'll definitely call me when you need me. And if you have specifics, you're like, do you know someone like this? I can probably find
Yes.
them.
Well, thank
So I'll
you.
be
That
your
would be
little
lovely.
absolutely. All right, have a beautiful day and we will talk soon.
You
All
too. Thank you.
right, bye Sarah. Bye
Bye.
everybody. Thanks for joining.